Poštovane kolege, profesor Rastović, the story of the Albanian invasion of the territories occupied and annexed by Serbia in the Balkan Wars in the 1913s is interestingly marginal to both Serbian and Albanian historiographies. Apart from the history of the two Balkan Wars, the First World War and the first years of independent Albania, the events of this armed conflict have only modestly attracted the attention of historians of the two nations. Present lecture aims to answer, on the basis of unpublished Austro-Hungarian sources, archival sources, two claims that Serbian historiography adapted from the contemporary Serbian diplomacy in the 1920s. According to one of them, the idea and the organization of the attack led by Isa Boletini was not only backed by the VIMRO or the Bulgarian government, but also by the Austro-Hungarian Joint Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the Ballhausplatz. The other claim is that the Albanian attack was supported by Austria-Hungary with arms supplies and military officers on the ground. Although my research in Vienna found evidence that there were indeed arms shipments to the Albanians and that there were indeed Austro-Hungarian military officers in Albania, these were, however, not related to the events of the Albanian invasion of September 1913. Other details are not dealt with in this presentation. So what happened in the autumn of 1913? On 19 September, thousands of Albanian armed men attacked the Serbian border guards along the Black Drin from Albania. The invaders took the town of Debar on the 22nd September when they numbered around 6,000 men. Next day, this column, led by Isa Boletini, moved on towards Gostivar and Struga. On the 26th September, another attacking column took Pogradec and then, moving along the Ohrid Lake shore, the city of Ohrid itself. This offensive army was led by Bulgarian and VIMRO officers such as Milan Matov or Petar Chaulev. The third attack was directed against Prizren and Jakovica, led by Bayram Curri, but it was repulsed by Serbian and Montenegrin border forces. According to Austro-Hungarian sources, the Albanian and Macedonian troop numbers peaked on the 29th September when they numbered between 15 and 20,000 men. The Serbian army launched a counter-attack on the 30th September. The Serbian troops mobilized about 50,000 men, took Žirovnica, then Gostivar and Debar. On the 1st October, they crossed the Black Drin line and entered independent Albania. The invasion army occupied significant areas in northern and central Albania, and these offensive maneuvers were finally halted by the Austro-Hungarian ultimatum of 18 October. Since May 1913, the Ballhausplatz had been aware that certain Albanian politicians and leaders from the former Kosovo Vilayet were considering a rebellion and war against Serbia. The planned rebellion and attack had, surprisingly, some anti-Vienna overtones. The organizing leaders, led at that time by Bayram Curri, asked for diplomatic and direct support to implement their plans. However, the Austro-Hungarian diplomacy, referring to the negotiations to the London Conference, refused at every opportunity to supply the Albanians from Kosovo with arms and ammunition. In fact, they opposed the planned military operation in all respects because it jeopardized the process of recognition of an independent Albania in London. When it finally became clear that during the Second Balkan War, that the Austro-Hungarian Foreign Ministry could not prevent the dismemberment of the ethnic Albanian territories, the Kosovo leaders decided to start the fighting with the help of the Bulgarian government and the VIMRO. By midsummer, when the real organizing began, Vienna had no means left to deter the Albanians from attacking Serbia. But what about the Austro-Hungarian military officers? Were they really on the spot? According to the unpublished Vienna archival sources, there are 4 ways in which the Austro-Hungarian officers could have been on the scene. As an intelligence officer of the General Staff, as an official of the International Military Administration in Skadar, as a volunteer serving as a military advisor to the provisional government in Vlora, or as a soldier of the Austro-Hungarian company that escorted the International Committee for Delineating Albania in the north. A few days before the Austro-Hungarian ultimatum was delivered in Belgrade, the Ballhausplatz appealed to the Joint Ministry of War to organize a reconnaissance mission of 4 military officers in Albania. The Foreign Ministry did not have precise information on the exact extent of the penetration of Serbian troops behind the London border. Based on the monarchy's consulates and the available Albanian sources, only the fact that the Serbian occupation could be established with certainty. The reason for this was that the jurisdiction of the Austro-Hungarian consulates in the area, in Skadar, in Drac, in Vlora, in Prizren, which were still more or less operational, did not extend to the state borders. The Ballhausplatz also notified the provisional government of Vlora and the Lord of Central Albania, Esad Toptani Pasha, of the dispatch of these officers, and this later, so Esad, in turn, notifies Belgrade of the arrival of the officers. On the 17th October in Vienna, Chief of the Austro-Hungarian General Staff Konrad received Heinrich Klanner von Engelshofen, the General Staff's intelligence officer in Albania, who had been in Vlora and Drac during the summer and September of 1913. It was Klanner's task to organize the operation. On the 17th October, the Joint Ministry of War issued instructions to 4 officers. The two officers to be deployed to the Zone 1 had to be briefed on the spot by the Consul General in Skadar. In the second zone, so in central Albania, the same task was assigned to the consulate in Drac. The officers were given 3 weeks to complete this task. The 4 intelligence officers had to send the reports through the consulates of the Joint Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the General Staff. The designated officers, along with Klanner, it was Oskar Osman, Rudolf Marcic, or Karl Adrario, left Vienna on 19th October and arrived in Drac on 21st October. In other words, they could not have been the Austro-Hungarian officers who, according to Serbian historiography, were with the Albanian invaders in September. In the spring of 1913, after the Montenegrin and Serbian armies defied the decision of the great powers in London to make the northern Albanian town of Skadar part of Albania and refused to withdraw from the occupied city, a coalition fleet gathered off the coast of Montenegro and forced the surrender of the city by force of arms. International troops led by the British Admiral Sir Cecil Burney entered Skadar in mid-May. By early August, some 1,550 British, French, Italian, German, and Austro-Hungarian soldiers were serving in and around the city. Admiral Burney established an international military administration in the city and its 10-kilometer radius in the summer. The military mission was under British command, and its purpose was to prevent the unexpected return of Montenegrin troops and their retaking the city. In order to avoid any possible military confrontation with the Serbian and Montenegrin army, Burney allowed the Austro-Hungarian troops to move only within the city borders of Skadar and on the road to the coast. The Southern Slav troops remaining within the borders of independent Albania were kept under observation by officers of the British contingents in the tribal areas of northern Albania. But there was another reason why the British admiral did not allow Austro-Hungarian units to move outside the 10-kilometer radius of Skadar to the east and the north. Namely, between July and September, Burney attempted to establish a British protectorate in the Catholic tribal regions of northern Albania. The plan to establish a British protectorate in northern Albania was brought to the attention of the Foreign Office in London, where the British Foreign Secretary, Edward Grey, was very uncomfortable about the matter. In the end, this matter did not become a major international scandal because the weeks of the revelation coincided with the Albanian offensive against Serbia and the anticipated Serbian counterattack. In the light of the above, no Austro-Hungarian military officers serving in Skadar could have been encountered by Serbian intelligence officers among the Albanians who organized the attack in the mountains in the summer. During the uprising, the provisional government in Vlora sought to stabilize its influence in southern Albania, as this was the only area where its power extended. The Albanian Prime Minister did not want to participate in the action of Boletini. But why did Cemali distance himself from the uprising? Mainly because he was preparing with all his resources for a civil war against Esad Toptani. The head of the Albanian government did everything possible to accumulate as large a stockpile of weapons and military equipment as possible. Austria-Hungary helped to raise an Albanian army of approximately 5,000 men. The Balhuspas provided military aid to Vlora through Austrian weapon companies and entrepreneurs. An armed confrontation between Ismail Cemali and Esad Toptani was imminent on the 22nd September 1913 when news came that Albanian and Macedonian refugees from the Central Balkans were attacking the annexed territories of Serbia from 3 directions. When news of the attack, these 2 Albanian noblemen temporarily abandoned armed struggle against each other. Despite the Serbian occupation in early October, the armies of Esad Toptani and Ismail Cemali began to build up their positions. According to contemporary British estimates, Esad Toptani had 9,000 men in mid-October, and facing them on the south bank of the Shkumbi River were some 4,500 infantrymen of Prime Minister Cemali. The number of former Austro-Hungarian officers who joined the service of the Albanian government is not known. According to the Vienna sources, there might have been 2 or 3 of them. They all traveled to Albania as volunteers, officially leaving the joint army. In the autumn, the provisional government prepared for a 2-front war. Most of its forces were deployed against the army of Esad Toptani Pasha, and the smaller number were stationed near to the southern borders to keep an eye on the Greek and the Epirus troops occupying southern Albanian territories. Based on my sources, the former Austro-Hungarian officers served on the Greek fronts in the area of Korcha, and they were not involved in the preparation and the execution of the Albanian invasion against Serbia. The Austro-Hungarian arms of shipments to Vlora also did not leave southern Albania. Without them, Ismail Cemali would not have been able to maintain his power against Esad Toptani and the Greek forces. The delineation of the Albanian border in the north was initiated on the basis of the decision of the great powers at the London Conference. The Austro-Hungarian member of the commission was Colonel August Mietzel, who arrived in Skadar on the 14th August, a day earlier than his British and Italian counterparts. The commission also included, on an Austro-Hungarian initiative, 4 military cartographers of officer rank, delegated by the Military Geography Institutes of Vienna and Rome. The Austro-Hungarian cartographers set off from Dalmatia on 18th September, the day on which the offensive against Serbia began. Because of the state of war on the border, the great powers agreed to allow an Italian and an Austro-Hungarian escort squadron to keep the committee's work quiet. The Joint War Ministry in Vienna formed an Austro-Hungarian company of 52 infantrymen, 2 officers, 8 non-commissioned officers, a regimental doctor, and 2 medics. And this company arrived in Skadar on the 27th September and did not set off for the shores of Lake Ohrid until the 10th of October. So, all in all, the Austro-Hungarian sources refute the 2 claims of Serbian historiography. After 14 August, if it is my personal opinion, only Colonel Mietzel and his officer's servant might be imagined to have left the 10-kilometer radius of Skadar military administration to the east or to the north to gain experience of the difficulties of working in the mountains. But since 15 August, there have been 2 other committee members on the ground watching each other's movement and reporting on each other. If Mietzel had indeed been away from Skadar for a longer period of time, there would be a trace of it in Italian or British archival sources. Personally, I also think that it is possible that the presence of the Italian and Austro-Hungarian escort squadrons assigned to the International Committee for Delineating Albania in the north, which although they arrived in the Black-Green area only in the last week of October 1913, were the basis for the belief in the Serbian historiography that Austria-Hungary was an active participant in the events of September 1913. Hvala vam na pažnji.